Okay, I think we are ready to begin, and I want to thank everyone for being present. We have 5 committee members, 2 staff members, and a 3-year-old guest. So thank you, everyone. I wanted to do a quick review of our mission statements, review our research matrix, and choose assignments on that, and then I titled it Review and Approval Survey. We didn't send you a survey because it's still in development, so that'll be discussion of the survey that we're going to be using with the public. And then also looking at our field hearing schedule and locations for recommendation to the full committee, and talk about our next meeting date. And that is it for our agenda today. Bruce, what time do you have to leave?
I need to leave around 12:30 if possible.
Okay, so we have about 47 minutes, I think.
But
David,
I can fudge that a little bit.
Okay.
just one point of order. For those who are participating remotely, we need to know, let's do a quick roll call.
Right,
And then we
sure.
need to know their location, where they're joining from. Full address if it's a business address, just city, county, state if it's a personal or home or residence.
Okay, Bruce, would you tell us where we are?
We're here at the Bruce Russell PC Law Firm office in Lebanon, Virginia, at 29 East Main Street in Lebanon, right next to the courthouse. 24266.
And that us includes David Newmeyer and Katie Mooney Gallagher?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, who else do we have, please? Go ahead, Sandra.
Yes, Danville, Virginia.
Okay, good. And David.
David P. Weber, and I'm joining from Berlin, Maryland.
Okay, good. All right. I think that includes everybody there, Chris.
Yes, those are all the members. And we do have in-person quorum, and we also have the majority of members to conduct business.
Great. Excellent. Okay, good. Going to go to the mission statement first. Lord.
I did put that in the chat, David.
Okay. I'm just going to read it out loud for benefit of people in the room. Our mission is to examine and raise awareness, and this is the full committee, of the declining number of lawyers practicing in Virginia, resulting impacts on the population and economy of the Commonwealth, particularly in geographic areas that may be described as legal deserts, and to make recommendations to address these trends, mitigate adverse impacts, and improve access to legal services, the legal profession, and the justice system for all Virginians. So this group gathered today is particularly focused on the geographic areas that may be described as legal deserts, and what particularly we can do for them. The research, any questions or comments about that? Chris, can you share your screen with the for the research matrix? I don't seem to have that pulled up.
Yes, happy to do so.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Do you see that?
Yeah, but it's pretty tiny.
Okay.
Keep going. Okay, can you do that anymore?
It's getting better. I guess it's hard for the guys in the same room to see it.
Better?
Okay, Chris, I'm going to ask you to just read us line by line.
Sure.
And what we're looking for here today is some volunteers to take charge of particular research areas in terms of finding out existing resources, things we can read, people we can hear from, and to share with those with the subcommittee. And so Chris, the best way I can think of it, just doing that is going through line by line. If there's not a volunteer for a particular line, we can go back and you and I can make some additional assignments later, and I hope we could get everything covered.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
So the bold items are what I would consider to be main research tasks that have associated subtasks underneath them. So I think if we can get through at least assigning the main tasks to subcommittee members today, that would be a really good start. And then the person that's assigned to the main task can maybe do some outreach to see if the subtasks are extensive enough to require, a second person being assigned. And then the two people can kind of go through and decide how to divide and conquer. That would be my recommendation, just so that we can get through everything on here, David.
Yeah.
So the very first one that we have is the legal desert survey exploration. This is essentially a way for us to fill gaps in the membership records. So, there's certain information that we can pull just based on being the mandatory state bar, but it always surprises people that we do have limitations on what we know about our members. And so there may be some things that we want to ask about. And then there's also just certain insights that we're hoping to gain from deploying some surveys. So I am officially working on this. We have a pro bono market researcher who's working with me to develop appropriate survey language and methodology. But it would be great to have at least one or two other people that can sort of be the first line of defense once we get a draft survey in place to provide feedback and comments before it goes out to the larger subgroup for final revision. So is anybody particularly interested in surveys?
And Chris, this surveys particularly of bar members, is that right?
So this one in particular is for active members in lagging circuits. We have surveys that we're going to be deploying for the legal subcommittee as well. And those groups are more universal, like all Virginia, there'll be one for all Virginia attorneys, one for law students, one for recent law graduates or Young Lawyers Conference members. And we'll be adding legal desert questions to those surveys as well. But the big survey for this group is going to be for the public, and then for attorneys who are actually in our legal deserts to understand what the impacts have been on them and on their community.
Right. Okay. So good. So we're talking about multiple surveys. This committee will particularly focus on active members and lagging circuits and on the public. Is that a good summary? Okay. Great. All right. Do we have any survey fans?
I'll be happy to help.
Great.
Okay, great.
Was that Sandra?
It is, since I feel like I am in that desert. I'll be happy to help.
Great. Okay. I've got the survey enlarged on my screen, so faces are no longer visible. But thank you for that, Sandra.
And Sandra, I'm happy to help out as I can. I'm no survey expert, but I've also got these interns who are with us for about another month here in the office, who I know would be willing to help out to the extent that they're able to do that. I know we had contemplated maybe getting perhaps a law student or a graduate student that had some special expertise in that to help out as well. But they're bright kids, and they could help me out and help the committee out on that. So I'm happy to participate in that. So if you want to pencil me in for that too, I'm happy to do it.
Okay, great. I'll assign you as the second. And just for FOIA purposes, we really don't want more than more than two subcommittee members so that we're not inadvertently having meetings discussing this
Sure.
before we
And
kind
I'll
of
say-
get to the.
Chris, if somebody else would rather take that assignment, that's okay. I'll yield to the other person who has a burning desire to do that and perhaps has some special expertise that I don't have in that regard. And you can still use my interns.
I would say the same thing. I thought Weber, I thought didn't we say you're the analytics man? I mean, I'm sorry to call you out, but I did that in our very first meeting. Like, you're the math guy. So, I'm
hoping we can get him assigned to the legal desert maps.
to the maps.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hide at the periphery.
I know you are, but like, it only makes
I'm
sense.
trying to go down in the ocean so that I'm like an alligator and all you can see is the top of my head. Ugh.
See, all I
mean,
see
yeah.
is you in that oasis, and I just see you there.
So on the survey is what we're saying.
Whichever
would-
you'd prefer.
Yeah, I would say on the surveys or the legal desert maps, because that's really kind of taking data that's been collected and like overlaying it, and I think there's a lot of good resources out there, David, and David Newmeyer can probably speak to this better than I can, who have already done this work. So there might not actually be that much you have to do other than like connecting with the right people who may be interested in working with us to develop a legal desert map.
I will be involved if I am being urged to be involved. I'm actually yeah, so I'll be involved. I think that the better use of me would probably be on survey design.
Okay, all right, great.
Well,
So you guys put me somewhere else then.
okay. So Sandra's coming off of that, and we're adding David W.
Okay, great.
But just to be clear, it sounded, Krista, like you have these people, these pro bono people on the outside who are going to take first crack at that design. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, I don't know about whether or not they're pro bono. I think that there's definitely organizations that have done this. I think National Center for State Courts, right, David?
Yes, they have done something, but I don't know the details.
Yeah, so I think that whoever is assigned to the legal desert maps would want to be doing outreach to the National Center for State Courts as a starting point to see if they might be interested in partnering with us, and then, figuring out what would be involved in that. So if we want to just go there on the matrix now, since we're already talking about it, is anyone particularly interested in looking at that?
So we're talking about it like a heat map, right, Chris?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. I have a resource to recommend that's done this before, Catherine Alternator with the Self-Represented Litigation Network, but it's actually a money-making operation for the SRON. So it costs several $1,000s, for which we don't have a budget.
Okay.
Because our budget is
Zero.
Well, and it might be that a recommendation that comes out of the committee is that the state bar invests in creating one in partnership with the National Center for State Courts. So we can kind of see what we can do with the data that we gather, but our limitations are going to be that ours is going to be very much based on the input that we get on the surveys and then just our membership information. So it's going to be like very member centric. And I think that a lot of the legal desert maps that are done in conjunction with the National Center for State Courts are looking at like larger economic and social trends. So like, you're looking at the Census Bureau information and incomes in these communities and level of education and health equity. And like, there's all sorts of other data points that they can kind of like overlay in the legal desert maps that we may not be able to easily access through the volunteers on this committee. So maybe this particular research task is just understanding what's possible in some of these partnerships and what would be involved, particularly from a budgetary standpoint, and then building that into our recommendations. So I think it's going to be a lot of outreach and research. So I don't know if anybody would be willing to sign up to do that outreach to NCSC and Catherine.
I will take that, Chris.
Okay.
And we don't have any idea as to what or how the VBA has their own committee, and they're going at this in a different way, I suppose, but we don't know what that way is. We don't know what they're doing or what their resources that they may have available to them. Of course, they don't have the same restrictions on getting a hold of a budget to spend money in furtherance of research and other activities as we have, because it's a slow moving wheel to get anything out of the VSB if we need it. And I think the VBA is a little more free in their ability to access fundage through the Virginia Law Foundation and other resources they may have, right?
Well, let me comment. That's an excellent comment, Bruce. In the Access to Justice Commission, we have tapped outside resources, either through the Law Foundation, because Ray White is a member of the Access Commission, or we've also gotten money out of private law firms with the leverage of Scott Oostdike. And so I don't know if the state bar is able to do that, Chris, because you've mentioned this business that it has to be approved by the governor.
Exactly. So the hiccup there is that we can seek funding from other sources, but we have to do a formal solicitation request. That has to go before, and forgive me that I don't know this off the top of my head, either the executive committee, which meets essentially on the same schedule as bar council, or full bar council before it goes over to the governor. And we typically do that once a year. So the different groups at the Virginia State Bar try to be very proactive in identifying what their funding needs might be prior to the fiscal year, so that they can request that, I think, in the October before they're planning to do anything. So I think we've sort of missed the boat on that, but maybe there would be a way to get an exception to put this before council at its next meeting. But it may be more effective to just go through a separate group. But I can find out a little bit more about that, David, and report back to you as the chair.
Well, good. Thank you. Or that'd be valuable, Chris. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The VBA can move more quickly, but they also are an interested party in this process. So yeah, I'd like to see what all our alternatives are. Okay,
right.
Chris, do you want to keep going?
Yeah, so I'm just scanning back up to gather and summarize approaches and initiatives in other states. So the good news about this task is that you can start your research by looking at the memo that I drafted and shared prior to our first meeting. It has a lot of good background information. I did sort of a cursory look at what other states were doing so that we could kind of have a sense of the scope of the responses to this problem on a national level. But it certainly was very much, an initial research project, not an in-depth research project. So if somebody would take the time to look at other state initiatives a little bit more closely and maybe reach out to different state bars might be a good starting point. for this one. I think that, you know, this crosses over with the work of the legal subcommittee because some of the responses might be, you know, related to just trying to grow the overall number of attorneys. And then those solutions may also have an impact on legal desert. So I had listed Henry Sue as a potential partner from the legal subcommittee, but he hasn't formally signed on. That subcommittee is meeting tomorrow. But I think David is already tasked with the legal desert maps and the local field hearings, so if we could take him off of this one, I think that would be extremely helpful.
Chris, I'm going to grab the interns out of the side office here and bring them in because there's some of this that they may be able to help us out with. Let me go grab my interns here and bring them in.
Okay.
I'll be right back. I don't want to break our quorum. I'll be right back.
You're within shouting distance, so the quorum is still good.
So I'm going to tentatively put Bruce down for this one.
Okay.
I'd probably help out with this as well, just because of my background with drug court and dealing with rural drug courts. I have some research that I think might be able to help us out a little bit here with this.
That's great.
These are the aforementioned interns. This is Cecilia Johnson, who is an undergraduate at William & Mary, and she's helping me out this summer, and she's super duper bright. And behind her, this handsome young man is my son, Clark Russell, who is here with us this week and is doing some other stuff with us throughout the summer. He's a rising junior at Abingdon High School. So, but he's also very bright. So they're here and they are available and are at our disposal.
Okay, so how about this? How about I put Katie down for this one? And Katie, it sounds like you have the full authorization to utilize the interns to do this research, and you could just supervise. And then we'll see if Henry Sue from the legal subcommittee will partner with you on this one. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
And Chris, I think you and I had discussed also anything that involved other state legislation would be a subject of interest to the VBA and the ability of VBA to help us out. So this could be an area of cooperation with the VBA for us.
Yes, I actually have them down for that subtask specifically. And it's still listed with a question mark just because we haven't formally reached out to them. But David, it might be good to just get a general consensus from the group that, you know, everyone's in favor of doing that.
Yes, yeah, and you by this group or tomorrow's group?
The subcommittee.
Yeah, okay, well, good. So I throw that out for discussion. Is this a good topic for exploring with the VBA? Any comments?
I think it would certainly be helpful.
Okay, Katie said it would be helpful.
Can't hurt.
And it can't hurt. Above all, do no harm. Good. All right. So I hear a yes and no other comments right now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So I think we may have one main task remaining.
Can you scroll over so we can see, no, the other way, so we can see exactly what the task is? So we don't see all of A on the screen.
Oh, you don't?
No,
Oh my
we
goodness,
see-
I'm so
we see
sorry.
part of A, and then we certainly can see B, but we don't see the beginning part of column A.
I've got my screen arranged so I can see all of A, but I've lost all the camera views. So there we are.
Okay.
Everything's different.
Or I can't see,
So
sorry.
I'm so sorry. I don't know why you're not able to see that, Sandra.
Let's see, I'm gonna minimize and, okay, now I can,
Okay, awesome.
sorry.
So for this main task, it's gather, analyze, and summarize VSB member data and related trends. So obviously, VSB staff will be heavily involved with this one. And there's a lot of information that we've already pulled. But I think that what I'm really hoping for here is someone that can look at this with me and decide how to present it in the report and analyze it.
I'll be happy to do that. I didn't know if David, if David would prefer to defer to someone else to plan the meetings, and I would plan the meetings and somebody else work on that with you, Christy, but I'll be happy to help you, Christy, on that.
Okay.
I think we're talking
Chris,
about
sorry.
David Weber here in terms of data analysis and David Newmeyer in terms of arranging local meetings.
Field hearings,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
field hearings, David Newmeyer, if you needed someone to help you arranging those, I'd be happy to do that if you want someone else looking at stuff with Chris. So I don't know. Sorry. I always call you Christy. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We have a Christy.
I know.
Hall.
And that's why I
So-
do that. And I can see Christy's name. So that's why I always say that out loud. Sorry, Christy. I don't mean to say your name in vain, Christy.
Okay.
It's up to you,
Christy's
Mr.
probably-
Newmeyer.
What?
I said, it's up to you, Mr. Newmeyer,
Okay,
what you would like for me to do.
Let me suggest, Sandra, why don't you and I work on the field hearings together, because
Okay.
that's plenty of work there.
Okay.
Good.
I mean, I know David Weber is interested in being a crocodile under the water, but I think that this is closely related to the survey work, just because you almost can't look at the survey responses without looking at member data as well. So knowing that I'll be heavily involved in this and the survey work, David, would you be comfortable if we put you down for this one as well?
We're talking with David Weber here.
David Weber?
Yeah, no, yes.
Okay.
Good.
He knew
Excellent.
that was coming.
Okay, great.
I suppose, using Virginia language, I suppose, but
I reckon is what we say
Reckon.
down here.
Mike could. I like the double
Mike
conditional.
All right. So in the interest of time, I think I have what I need from a staff support standpoint right now, since we've got the main tasks covered, and then I can have conversations with the individual members who are assigned to make sure that all the subtasks, we discuss them and they make sense, make sure nothing needs to be removed or added, and just staying in touch on the execution. So.
Good. Good. So Chris, have we covered all the major areas that we need to for this meeting? The
I
research?
think so.
Okay.
Yes.
And we'll have more to do with the legal committee, subcommittee tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you for that. We come back to our agenda. And then this is a note to myself, just a reminder as we're researching these different topics, not only written information, but people who can speak to us are also valuable, because I think that will help educate all of our committee members as well as the public who may not have time to get into some of the dense text and numbers that may be available. Okay, our next agenda topic then was to discuss the survey that we're going to be placing before the public on the VSB website, and also use as a framework for field hearing questions. The purpose of this survey is to gather information from the public about experiences that people have had in not being able to get legal assistance when they need it, and what kind of impact has that had for themselves, for their families, for their small businesses. And that will be valuable for us overall, as well as in live hearing appearances. So Chris and I have discussed this a lot already. I've done a draft. She and her survey researcher are also working on it as well. So we don't have a document to place before you today. Simultaneously, there's going to be a survey. I would like to make a sort of parallel survey available for bar members, all bar members, as well as other allied legal professionals, such as law students, court reporters, and clerks, judges, anyone in the legal profession who has thoughts on this, ask for their comments as well. And
David, I'll just say, I think those law students, I think that's going to be essential to the whole process. In fact, I think the data that we get from them is going to be maybe even more valuable than the people who are currently practicing and are currently members of the bar, because that's the future. We have to have some idea about what they're thinking and where they're considering going, and their reasons for going in the direction they're going, in order to diagnose what these problems are, to come up with solutions. Because when you've got the situation where UVA Law School is graduating 350 lawyers a year and 13 of them are taking the bar exam, that was shocking to me when I heard that. And I don't think it's a whole lot better at the other law schools in the state.
Yeah, we know it's similar with local here at Appalachian. Yeah. So yes,
but also,
let me just finish this the explanation. So I plan to be at the VBA meeting next week. I will have a legal aid pro bono table already set up. I would love to have surveys to hand out as lawyers to fill out on site as well. So this is just a warning that early next week, I hope that Chris and I have something in writing that we can share with all committee members for comment before we actually use it at the VBA meeting. So
just a quick question: it's a printed survey? It's a piece of paper that they'll get and fill out, or is it a QR code or something like that?
We've talked about it. Ideally, both. I think so. Someone wants to do it online, they can. Someone who's just there in Hot Springs who can take a minute and fill out a piece of paper and turn it in. That's great also. And as a sort of incentive, we thought we'd offer them tours of your office.
Absolutely, bring them on down here. We'd love to have it. We'd love to share. We'll put up a sign-up sheet up in the front so we don't stack too many people on at once.
Okay, so that's basically just to let you know where we are on that process with those kinds of surveys.
So what it looks like David Weber had a comment or a question.
Yeah, just with regards to the law schools, I just wanted to, at least on this side of the state, on the Eastern Shore, to just make sure that we also cover the Maryland. There's only 2 public law schools. There's only 2 law schools and they're both public. But I think I've shared this anecdotally with the committee in our very first meeting. But the 2 law schools that seem to be where everybody goes out here, everybody being very small, is either Appalachian or the University of Baltimore School of Law. So a lot of the Virginia schools, perplexingly, I know I said this in our first meeting, they're not giving any preference or care or concern to Eastern Shore kids. And so the Eastern Shore kids get shut out of Mason or UVA or William and Mary, and they either end up at Appalachian if they want to stay in state, or many of them end up in Baltimore because it's actually closer and it's cheaper and easier for them to go home. Again, remember, the Virginia Eastern Shore is the only part of Virginia that's not attached to Virginia. It's attached to Maryland. So,
in surveying law students, David, you say we need to make sure that we include those law schools. Is that where you're going with this, David?
I think he's frozen.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like. But the good news is that David is assigned to that research task. So I'll work with him on that and make sure that we get it to the appropriate law schools. I'd love to send it to any surrounding law schools. the critical piece is just that we have an in who will give us, you know, authorization to send it out to the students, or who will do that on our behalf.
I'm sorry, guys. Speaking of being not connected to the rest of the state, my internet just went out for 40 seconds, so I have no idea what anybody said.
Okay, we just loaded you up with a lot of stuff.
We assigned you to all the committees.
I will say that there is a lot of crossover there between Eastern Shore students being at ASL and quite a few in each class, really quite a few students from Maryland, at least 2 that I can think of off the top of my head in each class.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think it would be.
So yeah,
beneficial
I'm glad that you're seeing it too, but it's very perplexing and it's very frustrating. You know, the Maryland schools, again, I'm just sharing, you remember, I'm a Maryland State University professor, and Salisbury is really the only 4-year regional, both for Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland. And Salisbury gives in-state tuition to Virginia and Delaware kids because it's the only 4-year comprehensive on the whole shore. So I'm very familiar with what's happening because I advise all these pre-law students. And on the Maryland side, the Maryland schools actually give preference. There's a geographic diversity for the Eastern Shore. So like if you're from the Eastern Shore, you know, Berlin, Ocean City, you know, any small town on the Eastern Shore on the Maryland side, the University of Maryland School of Law gives you diversity credit. And I don't see that happening on the Virginia side. If anything, it's they're being punished. They have lower GPAs, they, you know, whatever it is, but the schools aren't as good and they're all working at, you know, on the boat, their family's boat.
David,
the season,
I'm thankful that you want to work on this. I agree it's important. We need to keep moving on the agenda because we only have Bruce for another 10 minutes or so, I think.
All right, sorry.
Thank you.
No, happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to move on then to the locations of our field hearings because I want our full committee to also approve this tomorrow. I had outlined, I think, 7 different locations, which included for legal deserts, for lower tidewater and the Eastern Shore, with a hearing location somewhere around Norfolk or Portsmouth. To me, obviously, the Eastern Shore is a legal desert, and Western Tidewater has problems as well. Lower Piedmont, Pennsylvania, I had suggested for that. The circuits that are what's the word that you use for that? The circuits that are underpopulated, Chris?
Lagging circuits.
Lagging circuits. Most of the lagging circuits are in that stretch between Western Tidewater and basically Patrick County and Amherst, which is coincidentally a lot of my legal aid programs service area. So anyway, Pennsylvania, I was thinking would be qualified for that. Southwest Virginia, Abingdon could be the best location because it's next to the highway. It doesn't have to be. Lower Shenandoah and the Alleghenies. I wrote this probably 5 or 6 months ago. I was thinking Hot Springs getting the VBA summer meeting. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But there's a community college there we could make use of. Upper Shenandoah, Winchester, Upper Piedmont, Warrenton on the other side of the Blue Ridge, and then the Upper Tidewater, Reedville. And I think the Access Commission is planning something in Reedville fairly soon, so that we could join on to that location with them. Any comments about the sort of general geographic distribution? Is this enough? Are there other places should we add on? I'm envisioning that we would try to start the field hearings in late August and finish by early November. So that is really at the max about a 3-month time period.
David, not to tie everybody down, you're going to send me all this. I'm trying to take notes, but I have Pennsylvania County listed twice for Lower Piedmont and then lagging circuit. Or I don't know if they were supposed to be one and the same. But But in any event, you'll get in touch with me so that we can work on this. But I was just trying to take notes, and I think I have some overlap there on my notes.
Okay, we're back. Whatever was just said, we missed.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I
sorry.
said, David, I think I have some overlap. I was taking notes. I've been taking notes, and I have lagging circuit, Pennsylvania County listed under lagging circuit, and Pennsylvania County listed under lower Piedmont. I don't want to take any time from our meeting, but you just get with me and we can discuss this in further detail unless you
Yeah.
feel like everybody else needs to go through this further.
Well, I was just inviting other comments, and if anyone's offered any other comments in the last 60 seconds, we didn't hear them.
David Weber has his hand up.
Okay,
I
David.
just wanted to, again, I appreciate the tyranny of distance, but I just wanted to point out that the Eastern Shore lawyers and clients probably won't come over the bridge. So
Okay, all right.
I know it's not going to help you, but
it's reality is what it is. So yeah, I'm willing to go over the Eastern Shore. We'll add that. Okay. Any other comments?
David, just for like a high level
it could be in
understanding.
Northampton. What's that?
Go ahead, Chris.
Just from a high level, like scope of work understanding, how many field hearings are you considering, even if it's a range? What number are we looking at?
So that is roughly 8 to 10, I guess.
Might be useful in addition to doing one in Abingdon if we could, if we have the resources to pull it off, to do one over in Grundy. So we're really getting into the, the more super rural part of Southwest Virginia, and really into the, the driest part of the desert. Would you think that would be? And I think doing Abingdon also is going to be useful because we're going to get more people over there, just because of the relation to the interstate. It's more accessible over there. If we could do both, I think that would be great. If we had to pick one, I'd say we pick Abingdon, but I think
Jump in and us is pretty close to Abingdon, but Tazewell, Grundy, and
Okay.
we can certainly use the law school.
We can do
if we
back.
can make it work, I think it would be great. But
Would it work to do back to back, like a morning in one place and an afternoon?
yeah, I
Yeah,
think that would be just fine.
Okay. A driving lunch hour. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That would work. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you. Back to our agenda. Okay. Our just last item then is scheduling future the next meeting date. How soon do we want to meet again? Mid-July, early July here. Do we want to be September, early September? Would that be a logical next meeting time? Give us 2 months worth of work to check in on.
Hey,
I think that'd be fair.
I think it'd be fair, David. My concern is if you, it is an ambitious agenda in hosting 10 meetings in the fall anyway. And then if you want to wait until after September, then we're into everyone's fall and holiday planning. So that would be a really tight schedule if we wait until September to do anything else in our field, unless we can forge ahead on our plans. But waiting, I think, until September to get back to the committee, that might be really tight.
Thank you, Sandra. I want our full committee to approve this tomorrow.
Okay.
And then you and I can launch right away.
Okay, great. I was almost having a panic attack.
But thank you. Please, there are other reasons to panic around me, but that's not one of them.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
David, are you able to just put pen to paper to list out the proposed locations so that when we meet with the full committee, it's easier for everyone to follow along?
When we're meeting tomorrow, okay, I'm not sure what you're asking for, Chris. Okay. We're not connected.
Lost Chris.
Okay, we're back. Yes, somebody disappeared.
And David Weber said he texted in or chatted in here as saying that he keeps cutting out. So he's not sure he's catching everything. But it looks like you're
Okay.
back, David. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I can hear it now, but it just, I don't know if it's on my side, your side. Sounds like Bruce is having trouble too.
Okay, let me suggest it's 12:27. Chris, why don't you and I talk just in a phone call? Is Chris on?
Yeah, I'm on now.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
What I was suggesting, Chris, why don't you and I have a phone call after this meeting ends in a few minutes, and you can tell me more about what you have in mind.
Yeah. And then before we go, I just want to make sure everybody knows that we have a committee email inbox now up and running. So if you want to share the email address with anyone who might want to submit questions or comments or feedback or concerns about the work, that is EGAD-VA@vsb.org. And I'll put that in the chat.
Okay. Is that I guess that's probably going to be publicly accessible by FOIA, or we are. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that. Okay. Yeah. Good. I was suggesting for our next meeting we do early September, and I will send a doodle poll, or Christy can, or somebody can, to pick out an exact date and time in early September.
Perfect.
Okay. Anything else we should talk about while we're together right now? Okay, let's communicate. We work best if we work together. So share information as you go along, as you have ideas, ask for comments, whatever. And we have this, BCC protocol to avoid tripping up on FOIA as well, but we can still email each other. So thank you all very much. And I think we're done for today.